A gorilla passed away at the zoo right before it opens for the day. It was the only gorilla in the zoo since they weren't a very profitable creature. However, the gorilla was very popular, and the zoo couldn't afford to open without it. The zoo manager asked one of his employees to wear a gorilla suit for an extra $100 a day to keep the customers satisfied until they found a replacement. The employee agreed and quickly took his place in the enclosure. Once the zoo opened, the crowd loved the gorilla even more. People from all over came to see it. However, a few weeks go by and the dazzle fizzles out. So to gain back interest, he climbs up the bars of the enclosure and hangs above the lion's cage, swinging around and doing stunts. The people stared in awe and shock as the spectacle continued. Suddenly the man's grip fails and he falls into the lion's cage. Afraid for his life, he screams, "Help! Help!" A lion sneaks up from behind him and pounces on him, whispering in his ear, "Shut up, or you're gonna get both of us fired."
A man was reading his newspaper when all of a sudden his wife hits him on the head with a frying pan. Ouch! What was that? I just found a piece of paper on your jeans pocket with a phone that belongs to some Mary Lou. Honey, that came from that day I went betting on horse riding. Mary Lou was the name of the horse I made a bet, and the number is actually the bet code. The wife really apologized him and even cried. The next day, he was reading the newspaper again, and his wife hits him again with a frying pan. "What was that now, dear?" husband said. His wife see him angrily and said, "Your horse is on the phone."
A college student wanted to sit next to one of his professors at lunch. However, the professor looked at the student with an arrogant face and said, "A swan shan't be friends with a pig. Then I shall fly on," replied the student with a smile. The professor was clearly vexed by the cheeky reply and decided to do everything in his power to fail the student. During the oral exam, he gave the student the hardest questions, but the student had amazing answers for everything. Hoping he could still fail his victim, the professor asked him a trickier question. You're walking on a road, and you find two bags. One contains gold, the other intelligence. Which bag do you choose? The bag with the gold, of course, replies the student. Ah, says the professor. Unfortunately, I don't agree. I would choose intelligence because it is more important than gold. Well, sir, replies the student, I believe that is because most people choose what they don't already have.
A Texan goes to Toronto for a vacation. He grabs a cab at the airport and tells the driver he's on his way to the Royal York Hotel. As the cabbie heads downtown, he passes Queen's Park. "What's that?" asks the Texan. "Oh, that's Queen's Park," says the cabbie. "It's our provincial government. It's like your state government. Those buildings are almost 200 years old, and they are quite big." "Well," brags the Texan, "we have buildings much older than that, and at least twice as large." They continue along and pass the first Canadian place. "Holy cow," says the Texan. "What's that?" "Why, that's the first Canadian place. It's the biggest office complex in the country," says the cabbie. "It took almost 4 years to build." "Really?" says the Texan. "Why, in Houston, they have buildings twice as big and built in less than half the time." As they continue, the cabbie is starting to get a little miffed by all the bragging. Soon, they drive past the CN Tower. Now the Texan has his head out the window looking up at the 1-800 tower with a rotating restaurant. "Holy cow," says the Texan. "What in the world is that? How long did that take to build?" The cabbie nonchalantly glances out the window and says, "Heck if I know. It wasn't there yesterday." Discovered that her daughter found a boyfriend. Being a protective father that he is, he starts interrogating her about the mystery guy. "Did he finish college?" he asked. "Yes, Dad. In fact, he was always top of his class," replied the proud girl. "Well, does he have a decent job?" he asked further. "But of course," she said. "Given his good fortune, does he give to charity?" asked the curious dad, to which the daughter replied, "He is the most generous person I've ever known. In fact, many people think the same." "That's great, Emily. I can't wait to meet this guy," he said finally. Emily smiled at him and said, "Oh, you know him, Dad. He's the priest." Sitting in the waiting room for her first appointment with a new dentist, she noticed his degree on the wall, which bore his full name. Suddenly, the woman remembered a tall, handsome, dark-haired boy with the same name had been in her high school class some 25-odd years ago. Could he be the same guy that she had a secret crush on way back then? Upon seeing him, however, the woman quickly discarded any such thought. This balding, gray-haired man with the deeply lined face was way too old to have been her classmate. After he examined her teeth, she asked him if he had attended Branham High School. Yes, I did." He gleamed with pride. "When did you graduate?" the woman asked. He answered, "In 1992, why do you ask?" "You were in my class!" the woman exclaimed. He looked at her closely, then asked, "What subject did you teach?"